On April 11th, 2023, the founding First Nations, composed of Peerless Trout First Nation, Loon River First Nation, and Lubicon Lake Band, signed a coordination agreement with Canada and Alberta in response to the Act respecting First Nations, Inuit, and Métis children, youth, and families. This was the first agreement of this kind signed by multiple First Nations in Canada, and the first one signed in Alberta by a First Nation, Canada, and the province.
The province and Canada play different roles in a coordination agreement. Part of the coordination agreement is literally how is Alberta going to coordinate the transfer of responsibility of children who are in their care to the founding First Nations. So that takes up, a good deal of the coordination agreement. The other part is to set out the principles under which the federal government, hopefully with contributions from a province as well, will finance the operation and ensure that there's enough funding to make sure it's a success. So those are the two aspects of the coordination agreement.
The coordination agreement enables the founding First Nations to exercise their inherent rights over their child and family services via their own law. Awasuk Weyasa Wewin.
We've always had our children's laws before 500 years ago. And now we have the opportunity with this legislation, Awasuk Weyasa Wewin, to be able to go back to those laws so that all of the community raises that child.
Today, when we say today in our language, anots, right this day, we're going to sign something here for our children.
This is what self-determination is all about, is to create our own laws for our children and our families. This is what we need to keep doing with education, with health, with children's services. We need to create our own path.
And governments upon governments have made a lot of promises, but it's only you with all your relentless advocacy that have been able to see this day through.
We have to act in a really positive manner.
Each and every one of us are a big part of what we are witnessing here today.
This agreement would not have been possible without all of the elders, the community leadership, the technical advisors, the lawyers, as I've heard a couple of times already.
There are a lot of chiefs and ministers here sitting at this table, but I know that for my part, there are people here sitting in the crowd with you that have spent a good chunk of their career looking for this day to happen.
Also bring along and educate not only the provincial government, the federal government, with all the employees, because at some point in time, the Indian Act will go away.
Awasuk Weyasa Wewin has tremendous significance. It will forever change the services provided to children and families in the founding First Nations.
The current child welfare system just wasn't designed for the First Nations.
Now we are able to take control over our child and family services. We are able to provide support services for our communities, our community members on and off reserve for the first time in history.
Oh wow, there's so much to say about it. But first of all, it's the most historic thing that I've ever seen in my lifetime. And it's so important because it has to do with our children.
Well, it's very historic. It's the first time it's been, a coordination agreement has been signed in Alberta. And for me, it marks the end of the beginning. And so there's everything that's necessary and required is going to happen after this, but it couldn't be possible without the signing of the coordination agreement.
This is a good day. You know, to be able to take upon ourselves that sacred right of parenthood again. To know that our children would no longer to just go elsewhere away from their culture, their heritage, their language, their grassroots, their home fires. And that is a good day.
The process of negotiating the coordination agreement was long and may well have changed the relationship that the founding First Nations have with both Canada and the province of Alberta.
So, up to this point, in Child and Family Services, the founding First Nations have signed, and other First Nations have signed agreements with Canada and Alberta, but it's always been as a delegate, as a provincial delegate, with delegated powers from the province to carry out the provincial legislation. And Canada was the funder. Now, the relationship is not as a delegate of either Canada or the province, but as an independent, if you like, First Nation. So it really represents the founding First Nations being on an equal footing with Canada and Alberta.
It's going to change, I think, in the sense that the founding First Nations are guiding where resources and where supports are going to be provided for the founding First Nation. It's not based on Canada's either policies or laws.
I feel that the trust is there, it's coming back, and that's good to see.
For the founding First Nations in Alberta, it's no longer are we under the legislative authority of Alberta. This is our law, drafted by our community, our members, our elders. The programs, the service delivery, right? The policies within those are created by our members, our leadership, our elders. And we're not guided by the policies of Alberta's laws, their policies. It's strictly, we own this.
Awasik Weyasawewin will impact the future of founding First Nations communities.
Apprehension is not an option anymore because we had built this law and we're going to focus on the prevention. We will help the families that are struggling. No, they don't have to be out there no more in strangers' homes wondering if they're ever going to go home. But they will be with us within our nations.
As long as there's significant resources, aka funding, like from the federal government, the resources for the community members are going to be astronomical, right? The preventative services, the prenatal services, all the services that we as a group of people are saying is needed.
But I think the focus now that we have is to make sure, one, that it never happens again, and that we make those investments in long-term reform.
Those involved in the negotiation process have advice for other nations who may be considering exercising their jurisdiction.
My advice would be to do it. To do it. Work on it, get it completed, active, and live it. Because I know it's something that we'll never ever regret.
Find individuals in your communities, and every community has them, who can guide and support a team leadership through this process. It takes lots of commitment and the leadership. The biggest learning I've had is that the leadership need to be committed.
Chief Samhain, Chief Ivan texted me and called me regularly, weekly, daily, asking, true story, more than my wife.
It's not as hard as you think. What it does require is dedication and time and effort. And there needs to be at least one person who is continually moving the process ahead. And the time is not going to be measured in a meeting once a week or a meeting once a month. There needs to be meetings every day on all different kinds of topics for months and months and months.
And reach out, right? My leadership have always said if there's nations out there that want support, just like we did with CAWASIS, they extended their hand to us and said, if you need anything, come, and we did that, right? We learned from what their experiences were, and we're in that same position today that we can share that our experience as well.
The signing of the Founding First Nations Coordination Agreement marks a positive step towards reconciliation and a more equitable future, spurring many thoughts on what the future holds.
And 100 years from now, I won't be around. But one thing I know, that I'll be in heaven, shouting, encouraging, saying, way to go, good job.
From Canada's perspective, the equation is incomplete without our provincial partners at the table, because every child that is taken into care is done so by a provincial institution, whether we like it or not. And if we have our partners at the table, we can come up with an agreement that not only lifts up your laws, but says to you, this is how we behave in the future.
The most important thing to keep in mind is the urgency of it, because it's not like a land claim where the land's just there and you can take days and years and eons to negotiate it. You've got children and they're aging out. They're losing their culture day by day. And so the whole process needs to be informed not only with a sense of importance, but a sense of urgency.
That's why I brought this teddy bear with me today, because it has a meaning to me. It says on the shirt of this teddy bear, every child matters. And truly they do, because they make up what we are. In them we see love unfeigned. We see such a purity in spirit. And that is always worth fighting for.